Good morning. It's my distinct honor to be here with you today. The men and women of the National Park Service have the privilege to care for battlefields, monuments, memorials that honor our military and protect many of the places where they fought and died. Throughout 417 national parks across the country, we are the keeper of the American legacy and all of its sweep and drama. Part of that legacy is displayed here at the U.S. Marine Corps War Memorial. Dedicated by President Dwight D. Eisenhower on November 10, 1954, on what was then the 179th anniversary of the U.S. Marine Corps. This memorial honors the Marines who have died in every major conflict since 1775, and their comrades and other service members who fell fighting beside them. It is a shrine to those who freely gave their lives in service. It also serves as the centerpiece of many special events, from the U.S. Marine Corps sunset parades on the grounds in front of you to the finish line for the exciting Marine Corps Marathon. On Independence Day, its quiet silhouette stands out against a sky lit with fireworks. Thousands of people take in the view and pay tribute from this ridge. This memorial is truly a landmark. From their inception, the national parks have been the fortunate beneficiaries of visionary and generous people who devoted their time, talent, and treasure to creating and preserving them. These are acts of love for one's country and bequests to future generations. Many of the earliest national parks were the direct beneficiaries of generous philanthropists who stepped forward to keep the national parks beautiful, vital, and accessible. In fact, there were no public funds used in the original construction of this memorial. Marines, naval service members, and friends donated the construction costs, $850,000 at the time. The generosity of David Rubenstein allows that tradition to continue. Over the past 4 months, we took meticulous care to renovate and preserve this memorial. The iconic bronze statue depicting the flag being raised during the Battle of Iwo Jima was cleaned and waxed. Every inch of the 32-foot tall flag raisers was examined. Holes, cracks, and seams in the bronze were brazed to prevent water infiltration. When it came time to add to the newest additions, the Q in the word Iraq had to be specially designed because there were no others. The roll call of major conflicts engraved on the base was regilded, and you can see those letters gleaming today. As the caretakers of this memorial, it is our duty to ensure that it is accessible to all who come to pay their respects. Next year, we will improve the existing bollard pathway lighting to enhance the evening experience and to improve the visitor safety. We will install new landscaping consistent with the historical design and upgrade the overall infrastructure to support the hundreds of thousands of people who come here each year. This gift will also provide the funding needed to enrich educational materials and park signs which teach visitors about the significance and importance of this memorial. For it is simply not a memorial that we preserve here. It is a gift purchased at a staggering human cost, one that we care for with all of the reverence it deserves. Thank you very much for honoring the U.S. Marine today and for your country.
Thank you, Mike. Will Shafroth is the President and Chief Executive Officer of the National Park Foundation, the official charity of America's national parks and nonprofit partner of the National Park Service. Will Shafroth.
Thank you, Alex. As we head into the Thanksgiving weekend, we all have very much to be grateful for as citizens of this great country, not the least of which is the bravery and commitment of our men and women in uniform and all that they have done to safeguard our nation and our world. So we stand here today at the U.S. Marine Corps War Memorial to give thanks. First, to give thanks to the Marine Corps, who, as this statue so powerfully portrays, helped secure victory in the Pacific Theater, World War II, and so much more, as all the gold lettering around the statue portrays. And they continue to be our first responders around the globe. Thank you, Marine Corps Commandant General Neller. To the National Park Service, who has stewarded this great memorial for 63 years since President Eisenhower dedicated it. So thank you, Mike Reynolds and Alex Romero and and Bob Vogel and all those that came before you to care for this place and to ensure its stewardship for future generations, and the same commitment that you bring to stewardship of all 417 National Park Service sites. And to Secretary Zinke, who is carrying the torch of stewardship of our public lands and our shared history, and whose commitment to making our national parks even better for our citizens today and in the future is reflected in the restoration of this great memorial. The work we celebrate today also represents what the Secretary and the National Park Service and the National Park Foundation strongly embrace: public-private partnerships, recognizing that government cannot always do it alone or always do it as quickly or as well as when it involves a private partner. And to David Rubenstein, our private partner, whose generosity and commitment to preserving America's history is leaving a very big mark on our nation, especially at places managed by the National Park Service. David's gift of $5.3 million through the National Park Foundation will allow this memorial to shine and ensure that this unique story of our nation is told and shared. David has also supported National Park Service projects at the Washington Monument, the Lincoln Memorial, Arlington House, and Belmont Paul Women's Equality National Monument. And just as the Marine Corps, their motto is Semper Fidelis, or Semper Fi, for always loyal, always faithful, it seems to me that David has earned the moniker Semper Liberalis, always generous. Thank you, David. So this monument is uncommon valor. A monument to uncommon valor now shines even brighter thanks to the partnership of common purpose demonstrated by you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Shafroth. It is my distinct pleasure to welcome the next speaker, philanthropist and businessman, Mr. David M. Rubenstein.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for coming today, and thank everybody here who's here. Everybody behind me deserves far more credit than anything I deserve for this event, and I want to thank many of you as well. Philanthropy is a modest way that one can give back to one's country, and so my contribution here is relatively modest compared to the enormous work of the National Park Service, the work of the Marine Corps, the work of the Department of Interior. I want to thank all of them for what they've done. This is a city where many people try to do things to give back to your country. There's no way to give back to your country perfectly. Many of the citizens who work in the government are giving back to their country daily. But there is no way to give back to your country more significantly than what Lincoln called the last full measure of devotion. Those Marines who gave their lives on behalf of our country deserve enormous credit for sacrificing their lives and doing so much to help our country preserve its freedom, its peace, its liberty, and its justice. This memorial behind me is really designed to thank those Marines and make sure that those people who come here every year remember that those people gave their lives on behalf of our country. But beyond that, I think this memorial has come to serve as more than that. It's become a symbol of all people who've given to their country in terms of military service, not just the Marines, but everyone, and all of those who have sacrificed their lives. And so it is with great humility that I make a modest gift to this purpose. I did it because I wanted to give back to my country and thank those Marines who served their country, and really thank all people who served their country, gave the last full measure of devotion, and also to honor my father, who was a Marine. I regret that he didn't live to see this occurrence, but I know that somewhere he's watching down and proud of what's happened and proud to be a Marine. So it's great honor and great humility that I thank everybody behind me and all of you who've been involved with this in making this possible. And I think it's a great site that other Americans will spend many, many years visiting. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rubenstein. Ladies and gentlemen, the Commandant for the Marine Corps, General Robert Neller.
Well, thank you for allowing me to join you this morning, and thank you to Secretary Zinke, Mr. Reynolds, Mr. Shafroth, and especially to Mr. Rubenstein for your generosity. Secretary Zinke and those in the National Park Service and generous citizens like Mr. Rubenstein and those who give to the Park Foundation allow us to preserve and care for magnificent and meaningful places like this, the Marine Corps War Memorial. a special place for Marines, families, for our nation, and our guests. I can simply tell you for myself, this is a place where Marines come to see the names of places where they may have been or others have been, to reflect, recommit, and think about what it means to serve their nation in the United States military, and especially as a United States Marine. You see today behind me the names of two campaigns, Afghanistan and Iraq, added to this living tribute to those who have worn the cloth of our nation. It honors and memorializes the sacrifice of 1,481 Marines who gave the last full measure in those conflicts. And because they are no longer with us in the flesh, I must take a moment to thank their families, their sons, their daughters, their spouses, their fathers, their mothers, cousins, for what they did and what they represent. All that's good about our nation, a nation where people are willing to stand up, take an oath without an expiration date, and serve their nation, to go to places they maybe never heard of, and to serve, and if necessary, give their lives. All members of our military are men and women of virtue and character, and they're willing to stand up and take action, and will be forever grateful for their sacrifice. I also want to thank the millions of Americans who have the trust and confidence in their Marine Corps. We know you expect a lot from us, and that requires us to live up to those expectations every day. Why? Just look behind me. To do anything less would be a dishonor to those men and women who allowed us to put those places on this monument. Perhaps that alone is enough of a reminder as to why places like this are so important to us. So we must keep those who have given all in our thoughts, and their sacrifice and their efforts and the things that they did make us all better. So I think it's fitting that we're here today, 2 days before Thanksgiving, that I would ask you to keep those who are represented by this monument and those who remain forward deployed and all their families and all the men and women of our nation who serve in the U.S. military, keep them in your thoughts and your prayers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, General. It gives me great honor to introduce the next speaker, the 52nd Secretary of the Interior, Honorable Ryan Zinke.
Well, it's a great honor to be with you, not just because of the Navy Marine team and the rivalry, but my stepfather was also Marine Sergeant. And for those that remember history, is that Interior came out of the Department of War in 1849. So I think it's appropriate, as a former congressman, the secretary, as a former military SEAL, I've always thought there's two things we should fund in our government, absolutely. It's our military and our parks. The rest of it is a discussion down the street. But as a secretary, I look at my deck, and I have a gorgeous deck that overlooks the mall. It's a little different from the point of view of a secretary. Some people look at the majestic monuments we have, and I can see from Washington all the way to Lincoln and Arlington. What I see as a secretary is nearly $800 million of backlog of maintenance repair. But what I also see is a generosity of individuals. And one such individual is David Rubenstein. When I look at your efforts, sir, with the Jefferson, Lincoln, the Marine Monument behind us in Arlington, that is a patriot. And I thank you. A lot of our monuments need a little elbow grease, but it is the dedication and devotion of all of us to understand how important they are to the history of this nation. And to my Marine brethren and sisters, I say Semper Fi, and let me give you a story of why I say that. I fought in Fallujah with General Mattis, and believe me, I sleep better at night knowing the General has Department of Defense, and I know that God loves us because General Kelly's in the White House. I was in Fallujah, and General Conway, the 1st MEF commander, and General Mattis, the 1st Marine Division commander at the time, were inspecting the front lines, and I happened to be the deputy and acting commander of Special Forces in Iraq. And as we were looking at the front lines, and I was telling them where the safe houses were and the sniper positions and what our order of battle was, and explained it to them, and they kind of nodded their head and gave me the look as a SEAL and a Marine do, and they went off. And I was basking in my glory about giving a great brief, and this young Marine sergeant came up rather quickly, and he grabbed me by my collar and nearly threw me down. And red-faced, I kind of dusted myself off, wondering why a Marine sergeant would grab a commander. I walked up to him, and he said, "Sir, they're shooting at you." So at that moment, I said, "Well, thank you, Sergeant," and Semper Fi. So with that today, the monument behind us is a symbol of dedication, devotion, commitment, duty, honor, and country. And with that, Commandant, Semper Fi.
That concludes the program. We will be moving to the memorial for photographs. I invite Bob Vogel to join us. So thank you all for coming out.